Wes Van Beck hits the game winner to put the Houston Cougars, or Cougs forever, I should say, in the second round because, of course, he does.
You are Locked On Coogs, your daily podcast on the Houston Cougars, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Coogs. I'm your more traditional daily host, Parker Ainsworth, joined by a co-host today, Mike Brown, who was there in the building in person. Mike, we usually have some weird, quirky question to start the show each day. But did you think Wes Van Beck was going to play as much as he did? That's my weird question.
Yeah, I'm going to be honest. It's like I was back when I was a student. We were cheer so hard when he came in the game for 10 seconds. We're like, Wes Van Beck. And then I'm watching the game tonight. I'm like, wait, did he just come in a full rotation? Did they just bring him in and give him legitimate minutes? They keep him on the court and then they bring him off, but then they bring him back on. And I'm like, oh, he must have had, 74 shots tonight, which is awesome. Oh, God. Listen, I can't believe, I go to the game tonight. I can't believe I fall in love with this team as much as I did so quickly. But there's so many things about this team that I love.
We're going to get into all of that. I think there's a nostalgia play that this team and this tournament does to folks. We're also live on a Friday night, so I don't know if anyone's going to listen to us speaking to the abyss about this. But it's a fun tournament. It's a fun thing. If you're new, you have no idea what's going on, but you saw something, clicked on it. The Houston Cougar alumni group is called Forever Coogs, and they're in the basketball tournament. The basketball tournament is a tournament that's a little over a decade old at this point, up to 64 teams in a bracket-style play. Winner gets $1 million. There's other financial incentives along the way. Houston's getting to host a regional, and the Houston Cougs, Forever Coogs, are a team in it led by Rob Gray. They beat Austin's own, a primarily University of Texas at Austin team. Horns go down from Mike as I say that. Well done. They beat them 71-60. Some interesting things here. It's 9-minute quarters. FIBA rules as far as the ball off the rim, which played a role in a couple different spots, and an Elam Ending, which means that after a foul or dead ball under the 4-minute mark in the fourth quarter, they add, I believe it was 8 points to the team, 6 points to the team in the lead score. 8 points to the team in the lead score. And then they play to a target score. It's supposed to eliminate, the hack-a-shack fouling. It's supposed to eliminate stalling. It makes every team's objective to just get stops and score. And that led to some kind of ugly play down the stretch. I want to talk about the whole game and the nostalgia aspect at some point. But, Mike, that Elam Ending got a little dicey.
Yeah, okay. So, first of all, I want to make sure I'm very clear. This is the first time I've ever gotten to sit in a media section, right? I'm a fan, okay? First of all, again, I've said it 100 times. I'll say it 100 more times. Tonight was awesome. Sitting in the media section, and it being a little hairy at the end, I'm sitting there and I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, oh my God, don't clap. I'm like, oh my God, don't. I'm sitting here and I'm taking notes. I'm making sure. I'm like, we're going to have to talk about this at some point. I want my run sheet to be ready, crisp. I'm internally, I'm like, oh my God, stop fouling. Stop turning the ball over. Stop fouling. They got within 6. I will say, as for all the Coug fans out there, we were never in jeopardy of losing that game. They were always going to win that game.
And in part because, as commenter Andrew Gutierrez points out, the atmosphere was electric. I watched on the screen. I say you could hear it on the screen. At one point, I think they were pumping in the band, or maybe that just came through the TV screen. Mm-hmm. I asked you, though, because it was so loud. I was like, was the band actually there? Elam Ending gets dicey. You're trying to keep yourself from pumping your fist. Houston, I'm going to keep saying that. I guess there are technically 2 kids on the team.
Houston.
Yeah, there are 2 people on the team that didn't go to UVH, but that's okay. Houston is up big when the Elam Ending starts, and the Texas team goes on a bit of a run, and it's okay, Houston has to score. They can't just waste the clock here. No. Couple missed layups, couple bad questionable shots, a bad turnover by Rob Gray. Ultimately, the sequence of events down the stretch is a couple of 2s and then a Wes Van Beck 3. When the ball swings to Van Beck in the corner, Mike, did you know it was in? What was the mood in the arena?
So the best part about that, and this was the theme for Wes Van Beck the entire night, on that possession, He already missed a shot.
He did. He did in that possession. Yeah.
Like the entire game, like every time he made a bucket, and if I have it right, yeah, you have him at 13 points. Okay, that's perfect. So do I. But I have it written down here that every time he scored, he missed a shot on that possession. I mean, we must have out-rebounded him tonight by 20 is what it felt like. And most of those were just Van Beck missing. We get the rebound, give it back to Van Beck. But as soon as he hit the three, yeah, like the game winner in three, I knew it was in. It looked good. The crowd was great. The crowd, for a basketball tournament game, you know, U of H fans showed out. It's not as big, though. I don't know how much you've looked at the audiences like across this tournament. But like some of these crowds at like Kentucky, what I've seen at Indiana, was it Creighton that had a good crowd too? Like
I think that there's a couple of the Astros are not in town. Texan season hasn't started, but Houston is a big city relative to a lot of other host sites. And I think that unfortunately I don't mean to like act like this is a bad thing. It's why we all love the city, right? Mm-hmm. But the truth is that there are other things to do on a Friday night than watch a round of 64 alumni team game, or I would argue maybe the best player, we'll talk about that later, wasn't even there, right? I think, though, that it's like you said, the people that showed up were loud, enthusiastic, got after it, and it was a very filled-in crowd, even if it wasn't like, filled to the brim like it was for Houston, Kansas a few months ago, right? Yep. Rob Gray hits a midi along the way down that stretch in the Elam Ending. I do want to take a moment. I mean, Wes Van Beck hits the game winner. Rebounding was the story of the game. But Rob Gray had 21 points. He's still a bucket, right? I thought it was impressed to watch him get to the rim. I tweeted about that. But you were there in person. Did you think anyone could cover him one-on-one?
Yeah, he deserves all the love in the world. And I got to give my guy Tashawn Thomas some love too, because there was a stretch in the second quarter where he just went off. Like he went 5. Do I have it right here? No, he had 4 straight buckets in the second quarter, and he helped build out that lead. Tashawn Thomas, and he even talked about this, and I'm going to get to Rob Gray in a second, but I want to give Thomas some love. Yeah. He talked about his time when he left and went to OU, how much he regretted that. And this culture that U of H is building, and it's always been here. It went dormant for a while, but the basketball culture that this school has is up there with the best in this country. And I say that because of the caliber of guys that they continue to have be a part of this program. And Rob Gray is near the top of that list. This is the basketball tournament game. He's getting after referees. Like
in a productive way. In a
productive way, absolutely. But they're up by 12, and he's upset about a hand check. And I'll tell you this, I got to give props to this guy, Kerwin Roach at Texas. And my sister and my dad went to Texas, and I'm familiar with Texas basketball to a certain extent. Kerwin Roach was a bucket when he was at Texas. It was no different tonight. Like, this was the Kerwin Roach show. And by the way, the thing that could make this tournament that much cooler is the team that you beat, you get their best player to come on your team. I think that would be I think that would be so much fun. Like, can you imagine, like, okay, we beat Texas and we get to drop a player and then pick up a player? Like, we get Kerwin Roach. Like, we win this game on Sunday night, we get their best player. We're not dropping off Wes Van Beck, okay? That's my guy, okay? 77 jump shot Van Beck, staying. But to answer the question, no. I mean, Rob Gray, he's one of the pillars of this. Yeah, I mean, I would say that. I would consider Rob Gray a building block, a foundational piece for the legacy that Kelvin Sampson is building. He was one of those first guys that you looked at and said, that's the way Houston Cougar basketball is supposed to be played.
I would agree. And I think it's interesting because I feel like when you ask a national audience, they remember Rob Gray in the tournament. I think the more local audience remember Galen. Honestly, Galen committing was a big deal, right? Like, I think that's the back and forth. But nationally, I do think Rob Gray would be the guy who was like, oh, I remember the guy with the man bun in the tournament, right? Like everyone remember like that. I mean, it was very little man bun, but it was slick back, right? That and
it was there. It was
different haircut tonight.
He looked good. Yeah, he looked good. He looked in good shape.
He's still playing internationally. Tashawn Thomas, as far as performances go, I should point out when he left Houston, went on to be Big 12 Newcomer of the Year at OU, and he left to go play internationally. He's had a 3-year run in Israel where they're like dominated, won the Israel Cup, Israel MVP. He's played in Perth, he's played in France, and he's played all over the place, right? So he's still playing more than 10 years later. I just think that he dominated the glass, and we'll talk about what didn't go so well. We need to go better, and some of that is Justin Gorham keeping his hands off the other team, right? But Gorham had a role to play in that rebounding stuff too. Devin Davis had, like, all of these guys. All of Houston seemed to dominate the glass, and it felt like Houston would get 3, 4, 5 shots, and Texas would get 1. Yeah. And that, I mean, when you're playing in a alumni summertime unorganized game, feels really important, right?
Oh God, yeah. And I'll tell you what, Melvin Frazier had a good game tonight. He had a big 3. Let me tell you, they just got to hold on. If they can win Sunday and they can get Deke Giroux and Fabian White in this thing, we're gonna win the whole damn thing. Okay, I'm telling you that right now. Like, I'm calling it right now. This team, the way that they are, even without those guys, has a shot at winning. If they get those two, this is a wrap. This is done.
You mentioned that they play on Sunday, and you didn't even know that was a great segue into who brings you today's show, and that is Game Time. The best place to get last-minute tickets, lowest prices, guaranteed. Download the Game Time app today. Use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. I like Game Time because the last-minute lowest price guarantee means you can, if you find tickets in the same section and row on some other app, you show up to give you 110% of the difference in credit to go towards your next purchase. On the app, you can find tickets to sports games like the basketball tournament this Sunday, but you can also go to comedy, theater, concerts, whatever you want to do around Houston or wherever you are. They've got tickets on the Game Time app. Download the Game Time app today and redeem code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms again, that's create and redeem code LOCKEDONCollege, LOCKEDONCOLLEG for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. Now, Mike's new to this show. He's not new to podcasts. He's actually had a lot of podcast lists across the bottom that you should check out sometime. But new to the show, I try and rush through that really fast because I try to get back to the basketball. But Game Time really is a great app. So make sure.
Oh, it is.
Folks
I
at home
use it. Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, this is not just me reading because it's the read of the night. It's also something I actually use. So Tashawn Thomas plays hard. Rob Gray plays hard. Wes Van Beck plays hard. I thought, like, going into this and in the preview of its show, I mentioned, like, Houston as a Kelvin Sampson identity is a culture that does not tolerate anything less than 110% effort, right?
Yep.
I think that's a big advantage in this tournament because no team has had a lot of practice time. No team has a bunch of inbounds plays. No team has very complicated defensive coverages. And the way when all that is even would be to play really, really hard. I thought that played out tonight, but I think it probably vibrated off the floor a little differently when you're there, right?
Yeah, it's definitely different. And you make a great point that, I mean, Texas just looked discombobulated the entire game. They just looked like they were never comfortable with how hard Houston was playing. And I'll give you a perfect example. You win this type of tournament with either play like Houston has or talent like a Kentucky has with Bledsoe and Willie Cauley-Stein and some of those guys that they have. And Andrew makes a great point that there was not any BS calls tonight. There was hard-fought basketball. They let the guys bang down low. Gorham, and that's the other thing. You need a guy like him because in real time, he's a guy that was an enforcer tonight. He, just like when he was here, he's the type of guy that he sets the tone. Like, okay, do not come near my guy. You come near my guy, you and I are going to have a problem. He was the one that was involved. It's either him or Devin Davis that was involved in that little scuffle. A little how do you do? You know what I mean? Like a little good to see you. And
I'm sure they're exactly, hey, good to see you. Good to see you too. I'm sure that's exactly what they were saying. Right?
And they were like locked up in elbows. One of the guys wouldn't let go, like whatever it is. But Gorham, to get back to your question, yeah, that's the way U of H is going to win this tournament. Kelvin Sampson, okay, I am going to put it out there because I don't know if you talked about it. How ironic would it be if this was like the first title that Houston basketball wins would be this tournament.
If we get further in the tournament, we might need to address it. I will say they've been awfully close a couple times, but yes,
They have been. But like how awesome, weirdly, like so many different eras of Houston Cougar basketball could be a part of it. Ryan Elwin was there tonight. Legend Ryan Elwin.
Did I see Quentin Grimes there too? Did I make that up?
I'll be honest. I don't know, because there was a contingent of U of H players in the front row, right in front of where.
Oh, so you're looking at the back of their heads. It's hard to. I thought I saw Quinn.
I saw their face. Like, okay, so if they were sitting courtside opposite of the bench, so like that's where Ryan Elwin was. I was a little disappointed that a Ryan Elwin chant was not broken out to tonight. I was a little disappointed. So I tried to do it via Twitter, but it didn't really take off.
Folks that get their tickets on game time and go to the game on Sunday should just start that chant, even if he's not there. Just see what happens. He may come out of the tunnel.
Oh, I totally agree. And by the way, like my favorite end of the bench guy dream could have been made tonight. Like if Wes Van Beck and Ryan Elwin were both playing like on the court at the same time, and then if we could bring out like Kirk Van Slyke, like the all
what a name.
Yeah,
pulled it all the way back.
Yeah, like the all white team of like since I've been a student and fan of the team, like my dreams would have been made with that tonight. So we got like a 33% of the way there. Coaching, I thought tonight was good too. I thought the coaching staff did a really good job. They were just they were ready to go.
Lawrence Pay is the head coach of the group. He actually is coaching full time now. I think he's at Sci Fair, if I saw correctly, and then he also runs an Adidas Circuit team, an Adidas Circuit girls team. That's a very high level girls team. Mm-hmm. And I thought there were several moments where he clearly understood what the goal of the game was. Like, Texas is starting to make a run, and so as soon as they get to the under 4 minute mark, he calls a timeout. Like, hey, that's a dead ball, so we just have to score 8 points, right? Like those kind of things are important. And like there was a moment where I forget, I think it was Thomas. Someone gets fouled in the last few minutes in the Elam Ending, I should say, and that's actually because the kind of foul it was a shot and the ball, and he's the one pointing out like he's on top of it, right? In a way that for this being Houston's first time to have an alumni team in this tournament, I think was impressive. I mean, there are other teams like, Marshall had a team for years. Wichita State's had a team for years. Cincinnati was upset. That was the thing that the tournament's Twitter handle was tweeting about. Cincinnati has had a team for years. And so like they've got people more used to this league in it. That was, I thought, impressive. I thought rotations were good considering, and I'll say it and we get into it now, I think they're missing their best player. I think Ladiki's the best player. DeJon Giroux is currently playing in the summer league. He is, I guess on the Memphis Grizzlies, really on the Memphis Hustle, playing on the Memphis Grizzlies summer league team. And he's therefore, since Memphis is still doing well, I think actually not going to be there Sunday either. If he's there Sunday, it'd be a surprise to me. I think he'd be the best player on this team if he were there, and his defense would be felt. But I think the best player tonight would be a toss-up. We mentioned Tashawn Thomas and Rob Gray. Am I missing somebody to give praise to here? Would you go with somebody else?
No, I think, and look, I differ a little bit on Giroux. I think Rob Gray is the best player on this team. Like this team is going to go as Rob Gray goes. And it was evident multiple times tonight that when he was sitting or his game took a step back, the team took a step back. I think an unheralded hero tonight, Devin Davis, was 7 points. I thought Devin Davis hit. He had a 3 in the first quarter. He had 2 easy buckets, and that's the other way you win this type of tournament, in my opinion, is because as you get further in the tournament, they're going to lock in on Rob Gray. They are going to stop Rob Gray. They're going to double Tashawn Thomas. They are going to force the auxiliary guys to beat you. And that's where Adiki Giroux comes in. And if a Fabian White can come in and he can play, but it's the guys like a Devin Davis, a Wes Van Beck. The one thing I had written down coming into the show tonight was they have got to hit more open shots. I mean, they missed so many shots tonight. I mean, just jumper after jumper. And that's okay.
And I want to say there's some jitteriness there or something, but also bluntly, a lot of these guys, the reason I think Houston's got a really good shot to go really far in this, if not win the whole thing, is that Houston's got a lot of guys that are still playing some level of, it might not be the NBA, but professional basketball.
Yep.
And so I didn't actually expect the jitteriness. I will say, I like a lot of things Ladiki does, Giroux does when he comes in and when he shows up. I don't know that he'll ever outscore Rob Gray, though, right? Like Rob is going to be the leading scorer, I'd imagine, in every game they play. It's all going to be predicated on he's going to be a mismatch because he's going to score on whomever.
I thought Devontae Pollard, that's another name. I mean, I know I'm mentioning every name, but he was good on the boards tonight. And Tashawn Thomas came into this game a little thick around the waist. That's something I noticed. A little thick. I mean, like as we all get older, right?
I must say, he graduated college in 2015, man. I think he's doing okay.
I feel you. Like I'm looking at him, I'm like, okay, he's still moving. I mean, he's still a bucket too. Like
who among us hasn't?
Right. Right. But I will say the one thing that I want to make sure I mention, the nostalgia, you brought it up before, was heavy tonight. I mean, it was so cool because, like, how many of these guys, and you may have to correct me, but I don't know if any of these guys played a game since Fertitta Center came to be.
No, and I think the telecast said as much too. First of all, I should point out we're going to also do this after the game on Sunday, and I'm sure every game they do, this will be a theme, is the nostalgia of this, watching Rob Gray score on a floor that has a U of H in the middle of it. Is just going to be cool, right? It's just going to be cool forever. It's just Forever Coogs, right? Forever. I think that the truth is that that's what this tournament does a great job of striking a chord with, and why it's so cool to see a Houston team in it is like, you know, we mentioned Tashawn Thomas. They got guys on this team from a pre-Kelvin Sampson era, and we think of, you know, Houston and Grimes and Sasser and Shed and the guys over in Summer League, but the truth is, like, these guys kind of laid the foundation that they lay. Like it's stair steps, right? And we go back in the time machine a little bit and get to see this. It's a really cool product as a whole. I have to admit, like yourself, I wasn't diving a whole lot into it the last 10 years because there hadn't been a Houston team in the last, like what was it? I'm going to go watch the Marshall team. It's a cool product though.
Yeah. And I watched it last year. I wasn't a fan of it. I thought it was goofy. I thought it was silly. Like, I was like, oh, the Elam ending. Like, it made sense to me. But last year when I watched this thing, I was like, pass. Seeing it in person, though, I will tell you, they do a really good job. Like, it's well put together. They know what they are. Their social media, too. Shout out to their Twitter. Their Twitter is hustling today. I mean, they're throwing out 20 to 30 tweets an hour, it feels like, from minimum.
They clearly have a team spread out. But there's 8 different locations, 8 games happening at once. It is March Madness level of basketball as far as the spread out timing of it all.
And it's awesome. Like, watching the game tonight listen, credentialed media, okay? I'm impartial. I'm not rooting for a team here. But, I mean, like, impartiality, I thought it was good. Like, it was just a really solid product to watch live. Good basketball, not great basketball. You know, we're used to that being a Rockets fan the last couple of years. We won't talk about that on this show.
That's not this show. This show.
The Cougs win. We get to go into the weekend. And I don't know about you. I don't care what tournament it is. It's always good when UT loses. And my day after one of my teams wins, it's all like tomorrow is Saturday. We don't have to go to work. Like, U of H wins. We get to watch a game on Sunday. Like, they're setting up. Thank you, Cougs, for setting up a good weekend for me.
Thank you. Thank you, Wes Van Beck. I don't and it is interesting because I'm like you a year ago, or I'm not saying I've never watched. I've just never been like paying that close of attention to it,
right?
Because there was not a Houston team in it, right? And I was kind of like, oh, that's almost felt gimmicky. And then they put a Houston team in it. It's like, wait a second, I get to watch Rob Gray again, right? I get to watch Justin Gorham. Wait a second, hold on. Like suddenly it's like, wait, like the guys you watched before.
Yeah.
Like that's the thing though. It's like when it's not your team, it does feel that way. So if you are, I don't know, does A&M have a team? If you're insert school without a team, I almost get where you're coming from. But trust me, once you're in it, it's a lot of fun.
And the thing, and I'll go as far as saying this because I've watched a decent amount of both. I'm there when I say I'd rather watch the TBT than the Summer League every day of the week.
So I think the interesting thing, especially once we get to the point where Summer League guys are back in this. So Ladiki and his team, the Memphis group, they're good enough to be in the Summer League playoff, but most guys will probably actually be there outside of the handful of teams in the playoff by Sunday, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, Mike follows the Rockets. He knows that what's going on, right? Reed Shepherd is good and all that, but they didn't make the playoff, I don't think, right?
No, but it just doesn't matter. Like the basketball itself, it means more in this tournament, and it's the nostalgia factor is just through the friggin' roof with this thing.
Well, and the nostalgia is huge. I also think there's something to in Vegas. A lot of guys are trying to get a contract. In this, you got to win to get any money, right?
Yes.
And I feel silly saying anyone's selfish because like the beauty of basketball is at some point someone's going to shoot and try and score, right? But I do think that plays a role into like Justin Gorham diving on the floor for a loose ball and then kicking it to Gray and finding Wes Beck in the corner instead of taking the shot yourself. And like those kinds of moments happen once you're sharing the prize at the end of this. If we're each fighting for a 10-day, you shooting doesn't help my 10-day, right?
Yeah,
it's a whole different deal.
It just means more. And I think that's, I'm just putting a bow on what you just said, but like, this means a lot to these guys. Like, Wes Van Beck is probably, selling insurance in Dallas at this point. But the fact is that it's a really cool thing that these guys, and it's so weird because like the more I read into it, that it's Forever Coogs, but there are guys on the team that didn't go to University of Houston. It's mostly University of Houston. But like I'm looking at the Forever Austin team, and they had a decent number of guys who didn't go to Texas. But like the teams that are nearly every single guy, like the most important guys on this team went to the University of Houston. And I encourage you, if you're listening to this, tonight, whenever, check this team out. Because this team, if you want to go to the game on Sunday, they play at 6:00. You can get a cheap ticket. It's a good watch. Like this is a good, solid watch. If you're a U of H fan and you can't wait for football, you can't wait for basketball, this is a good way to spend some time at Fertitta Center. This is the best way I can put it.
And I would point out that I also think they found a guy like Melvin Frazier. Chandre Jones came in as a non-U of H guy, but Melvin Frazier struck me as, they found a guy that went to Tulane. Tulane does not have a team. He plays a very Houston Cougar brand of basketball. He can come in and help out, right? Like that I think was the thing that they did a good job in putting this team together with. As Mike points out, the next game is Sunday night, 6:00 against it's equivalent of a Boise State alumni team, once a Bronco. I don't know a whole lot about these guys. I do know in looking through the bracket that they won in what was technically an upset over the New Mexico team as far as the seeding goes. We'll be breaking it down after the fact. I don't know a whole lot to Did you catch anything on Boise State you thought was worth mentioning before we let it go?
Well, I think the one thing that stands out about Boise is that it was technically an upset. And I despise being the team that has to play the team that just upset somebody else. Yeah. It's so, like, even in the tournament, like, my favorite, upset is to always pick the 11 over the 6. And so many times when the 11 beats the 6, they have so much momentum. And how quick these games are, I think U of H, it is such a benefit for them to be playing in their home gym. But this is a gym that these guys have never played in before. I'm sure that they've been in the gym multiple times. They visited, they can go shoot around, but playing in the gym, it's a benefit. But Boise looked good earlier today. I mean, no disrespect to the New Mexico team. All right, you got to go back to New Mexico, after this game or wherever you guys are coming in from. I mean, U of H should be favored 100% on Sunday. Based on what I saw from Boise today, I went into this game tonight saying that U of H should have won this game by 10 on paper. I think Boise, it's going to be a little bit closer. I think U of H wins, I would say, by 5-7 on Sunday is going to be my prediction. Based on what I saw from Boise. Boise's going to be tough. They are always tough.
Well, and I don't know a whole lot about in reading through names of once a Bronco or that are on the once a Bronco roster. There's not. I mean, Darren Collison is listed in this tournament. Ty Lawson was in this tournament, right? Like there are guys that I knew from the NBA in this tournament, or guys that recognize. You mentioned Kerwin Roach from the Austin team, right? That you remember from having good college careers. I guess Max Rice is a shooting guard, a guy I kind of remember, but I mostly kind of think he was more of a social media darling that was good at basketball, not like, I'm trying to think of guys that go through this. I do think, though, like you're saying, momentum is key. And frankly, Houston won. They didn't play great down the stretch. Like they finished, but they finished with a win, but it could have been a lot prettier, to say the least.
I mean, yes. Okay. Yes, I guess. Think of it like you get to go to Freebirds and you wanted more chicken, but it still got the job done, right? Like you're sitting there and you're like, yeah, I could have done with a little more chicken on the top of my bowl, but you know what? I got enough. I'm satisfied, and we move on. That's what it felt like to me. They were a little sloppy at the end. But
mentioning Freebirds at 11 p.m. should be a crime. That now I just want to go get something to eat, Mike.
Oh, absolutely. Listen, and for whoever's listening out there, Freebirds over Chipotle any single day of the week. I will fight you emotionally and verbally over. I will go to my grave saying that Chipotle is awful. Sorry if you're sponsored by Chipotle, but Freebirds over Chipotle.
I'm not, and now I won't be.
Yeah, right. Okay, my bad. You know what? Chipotle, I take it back. You know, y'all are even. Y'all are even, Steven.
Mike's the guest. It's not.
It's okay. I'm never coming back. So, you know, so much fun.
No, I think that's a fair way to put it. I'm getting greedy. They were up big. I'm wishing they held on to it. I'd feel better about it. They play again at 6:00 local time Sunday night. Again at the Fertitta Center. Tickets wherever you can find them. The game time has the lowest price guaranteed, so make sure to check them out. Mike will be there again, and we'll be talking about it again after. We'll see if we can get live right after. We'll see. We'll finagle something, I'm sure. But this is fun, and this is fun enough for me to keep talking about it. So I'm excited that Houston keeps winning. I would go a long way. We get to talk about it every couple of days.
I'm very excited about it.
Mike, you are a part of a bunch of different projects. I don't know which one is current, present, because it's kind of a lull in a national sports calendar and all of that. But anything you want to send people to direct them to between now and Sunday before we get off the air?
Yeah, we actually have a Beer Sports Whatever coming up next Thursday with Brian Ackerman of 97.5 ESPN here in town. So make sure to check out my Facebook. Just search Mike Brown, big, goofy, Jewish-looking guy coming up at the top of that list. I verified that with Facebook. So Mike Brown, also on my Twitter at Mike Brown _2020. We'll be live there with Brian. Get you caught up, get you ready for everything NFL. Getting ready for the Miami Dolphins run to the Super Bowl. We'll see the Texans there. Would be a perfect ending to the NFL season for me with the Dolphins winning, obviously. But no, BSW is top of mind right now for us, and Bottoms Up, Fins Up. We also do that show. You can check that out, Apple Podcast, anywhere you can listen to podcasts.
All kinds of fun stuff. You've also done Rocket stuff in the past for several years, so I'm sure you're glad to be. I'm a big basketball person. I'm loving being in basketball, even in the summertime. If you're looking for more listens this weekend, my second listen I'm recommending is Locked On Big 12. Drake is talking about all this. You know, is Florida State and is Clemson? Is anyone who knows? Drake is finding out. Make sure you check that out as well. Locked On Coogs is a proud member of the Locked On podcast. I mean, it's your team every day. Go Cougs, forever Coogs.